Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy on a busy sports weekend, and we are literally like all over the place. All right, so this is coming out on Thursday, March 21st. I had intended to get this out on like Wednesday night, but it's total chaos. Murph is in South Carolina. Hello from the back of a Walmart parking lot in Columbia, Murph. How are you?
Hi, it's barren, it's cold, it's lovely, it's South Carolina.
But there's a okay, you've never seen a Murphy USA gas station before in your life?
No, as of 3 minutes ago, it's the first time I've ever seen one.
How is this even possible? Like,
because I spent 25 years of my life in Southern California, Jeffrey.
Yes, but you're not 25. You've had you've spent a rather significant chunk of your life in the Southeast. I don't know how you missed this.
Do they have Murphy USA gas stations in Florida?
I think they do. Like if you go a little bit north of here, yeah. Well, north of Orlando. I don't know, but they're around. I know they're around here. Eric, you were at softball last night, so that was always fun.
That's right, Brevy. Hello, friends. It was a good win there for softball there.
Yeah, we had some good win. We had good wins for softball. We had good wins for baseball, which we'll talk about later. Our guest on the show today is Michael Smith of Sports Business Journal and Sports Business Daily. He co-wrote the story that with John Oran, where they broke the American Athletic Conference's new TV deal with ESPN. So we will break that down with Mike. Great conversation. Actually, one of the most intriguing interviews that we've had ever in this podcast. And by the way, we're on episode 151.
There is no other UCF podcast that will break down the TV contract legitimately and as in detail as this one.
Legitimately? So you're calling the other guys illegitimate, huh? Oh.
I'm just saying.
Them's fighting words.
We have facts. We have the guy. We're the only ones that have the person that actually broke the story.
There you go.
Who knows what's actually going on.
All right. So, and we will, but we're going to begin with hoops. Now, it will be a busy Friday of basketball for UCF because both the men's team and the women's team are in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, we know about the men's team. They play at 9:40 p.m. Eastern time against VCU in Columbia, South Carolina, where Brian Murphy is right now. We broke down that entire game.
That's why he's there.
That's right.
Why he's there. He's not there for the gas station.
Yes.
Not even the gas station.
No, he's not. He's not scouting gas station opportunities.
It is 2:28, so I might be here for the gas. I mean, that's a good price.
That's not bad. So. Yeah. But we have a full breakdown of the game with Taylor Young that we had on our emergency podcast that we had on that we recorded on Sunday night. So make sure you listen to that for the full breakdown if you haven't already. But while we're here, Murph, you're in Columbia. I'll check in with you on any updates. I know that there were some questions about the injury to Marcus Evans, the guard for VCU. What's the latest from what you've been able to glean as you made your trip to South Carolina?
Well, Marcus Evans, for UCF fans who don't know, is kind of like the B.J. Taylor for VCU. He's basically their on-court leader. He's their leading scorer. He facilitates and he scores. He's also, for VCU, he's really the head of the snake of their defensive principles, which is pressing and creating havoc. He leads the team in steals. So he's important, like critically important for VCU on both ends of the floor. He is, according to the coach Mike Rhodes, questionable to play Friday night against UCF. Evans hurt himself. He got injured during VCU's conference tournament loss last week, in which he hyperextended his left knee and also suffered a bone bruise. He's been rehabbing, but bone bruises are really tough to heal, and they can linger and they're painful. So we don't know anything as of Thursday, or excuse me, as of Wednesday. He's questionable. Now we will talk to Mike Rhodes again today. I believe that's this podcast is coming on 11 o'clock for us. So by the time this is uploaded, I might have already talked to Mike Rhodes this afternoon. We'll see if there's another update on Marcus Evans, but basically the star player and the on-court leader for VCU is apparently 50-50 for this game.
And you're at spokes_Murphy on Twitter, so make sure that you follow Brian for all the latest on that. So this obviously would bode well for UCF, I would imagine. But that said, VCU is still favored by, or excuse me, no, the line has changed. I beg your pardon.
Oh, yeah,
the line changed.
Yeah, so
all the money's on UCF, right? What is it right now? UCF's at -2.
It's -1 on Oddshark.com. It depends on where you look, but it opened at UCF +1, and so the line flipped, and 62% of the money. This is according to SB Nation's partners with Oddshark. 62% of the money's on UCF with that injury. So obviously Vegas thinks that's pretty critical.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, he's huge for them on both sides of the floor. So I understand why that line flipped 2 points.
Yeah. So, and this is a big opportunity, obviously, for UCF, not just because you can get their first win in NCAA tournament history in their 5th trip, first time as an at-large, but Eric Lopez, big TV crew. They're going to be playing in front of Jim Nance, the A crew for CBS, Jim Nance, Grant Hill, Bill Raftery. 9:40 p.m. approximate tip. Duke they get a lead in from Duke, which is good. The game will be on CBS. And in addition to that, I mean, don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but you beat VCU, you will more than likely face the Duke Blue Devils in the prime game on Sunday afternoon. So, and I tweeted this out earlier. Now looking back on it, what a year of media coverage for UCF in the past in the past 15 months.
It really has. If you go back to the football being on Coasting College game day, UCF basketball being a part of College game day.
Not just that, but even you can even go back to the USF game at UCF on Black Friday. The crazy game that everyone was watching. With the Mike Hughes kick return, and then the Memphis game, and then the beating Auburn, and then a year plus really of national championship talk on all over the place, and now football this year, and now basketball getting those prime slots on CBS, right?
It's amazing that we could talk all we want about marketing campaigns and the cliches and this or that, but it's amazing when you win how much coverage you get. And that's what's happened here. But UCF has had an incredible run of success across the board, and it's as a result they've gotten a lot of coverage. I mean, I really do believe I've watched the coverage this week. I think everybody's rooting for UCF to win this game. I think a lot of people want to root for this UCF Duke game. Now, unfortunately, there is a negative side of it in that because I've listened to some other, like The Ringer, for example, with Mark Titus and Tate to do college basketball and others. A lot of people want to see Taco Fall guarding Zion Williamson. And,
I don't. Nothing against Taco, but I don't.
But they want to see that collision, I guess, and that's what's kind of exciting. But you got the storyline with Johnny Dawkins, obviously one of the greatest Duke players. And what's fascinating about this is the ACC network just recently announced that one of the first documentaries they're going to do when the ACC network debuts is on Mike Krzyzewski, on the recruiting class that saved Mike Krzyzewski and Duke, which includes Johnny Dawkins in that class, in that recruiting class from '82 with which included Jay Billis. So this is all a big deal. In fact, I just have this visual, guys. Here's my prediction. If UCF were to beat VCU, I think you're going to see UCF Duke highlights with Johnny Dawkins and Krzyzewski shaking hands in that documentary come this fall. So, I mean, there's a lot on this. I mean, this is exciting. I mean, with Jim Nance, like you said, who's, by the way, I think one of his first Final Fours that he covered was when Johnny Dawkins was a player in the year 1986, I think it was, when he went to the Final Four. And basically, if you look at the numbers, how the first round and second round games do, this will be easily, potentially, the most watched UCF basketball game of all time, locally and nationally. Especially if they beat VCU, that Duke game could easily get up to as many as 9 million viewers to 10 million viewers. That's like right up in the Fiesta Bowl against Baylor range. That's what we're talking about here, which is unbelievable for basketball from an exposure standpoint. And it's funny because I've run into some fans that are bummed out because they think they have no chance against Duke, and I'm like, who cares? Like, you're first of all, they're gonna tip it off and play. If any sport, March Madness has shown that anything could happen. And number three, and the exposure you're going to get from that game is just going to be remarkable if you get there. Now they got to get there first against VCU, which I think is, that night, that's going to be a tight game. I still believe possessions are going to be at a really valuable. Turnovers is a key stat, and I think rebounding is a key stat for both sides on this, because neither team is really the greatest in shooting the basketball from the three-point line. But then again, neither is Duke, by the way. So this is kind of like old school basketball in a lot of ways, where neither these teams really depend on the three-point shot like other teams do.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be an intriguing matchup for sure. I mean, obviously, like you said, though, assuming we get there, I mean, there's still a game that's expected to be tight. Let me ask you guys just real quick, rapid fire, before we get to women's. Prediction. I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Prediction for the VCU game. Eric, I'll start with you.
I got them beating VCU. I think it's a close game. I think first to 60 wins. I think it's like a 60-54 type game. Mm-hmm. So I've got UCF winning that game, and then unfortunately losing to Duke. But I think they will be respectable in the Duke game. I don't think that's a blowout at all. I think it's about an 8 to 10 point game there against Duke. I think Duke would pull away. So that's kind of how I see this going.
Murph?
I think the over-under for the VCU game is like 126.5. It's one of the lowest over-unders on the board for the first round of the tournament.
Yep, 126.5.
Yeah, I will go a little over and say 70-63 UCF. I think they'll be able to beat the press a little bit as long as they don't turn it over. Really, the big thing for UCF is not turning the ball over against that pressure. If they do that. If they do that, they're going to win this game. All right, unless they have like a catastrophically bad shooting night, something that's really an outlier. If they just don't turn the ball over, they're going to win this game. And then, as we said in our emergency podcast, quote unquote emergency podcast on Sunday, when we talked about this game at length, so you should go back and listen to that podcast for more on this VCU game. The good thing about playing Duke is that you're playing Duke. That's the good part. So, relish that. And I do think that UCF will probably lose that game by, I would say, 15. But that's probably going to be below the number. I think the number for that game is probably going to be above 15. So there's no shame in that.
Plus, it's a one-game situation. You never know. We've seen stranger stuff happen. So, and that's the beauty of the NCAA tournament. What if I told you, Murph, that 56% of the money was on the under?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, these teams don't shoot very well, and UCF obviously runs very slow. And VCU, if they don't get in the paint, they don't score. They don't shoot very well at all, and so that's where UCF has an advantage with the matchup. So,
right.
I get it, but I just think maybe I'm guessing it'll be over. But what do I know? I should say also, if UCF fans want to feel a little optimistic. If you go on like the Yahoo national bracket and the ESPN national bracket, CBS as well, and they'll basically give you an amalgamation of what all the brackets, like the percentage of people who are picking that team to win. UCF is usually around 50, 56, 57, 58% of the picks for this game. So most people in the nation think UCF is going to win this game. Now, do they think UCF is going to win, or do they want UCF to win to see Zion possibly dunk on Taco Fall? I don't know. But the fact is that people are picking UCF majorly to win this game.
All right. Well, it's an approximately.
They want to see the storyline. They want to see the Dawkins storyline.
That's also part of it.
And I think something that I'm going to be curious, Murph, because you're going to be there, and I know you're going to tweet about this, how many UCF fans will be there.
Yeah.
And I also wonder, for example, in the VCU game, how many Duke fans stick around to root for Johnny Dawkins? I mean, Johnny Dawkins is, by the way, one of the greatest players of all time in college basketball. He's one of the great Dukies. His number is up in the rafters at Duke there. He's looked on very favorably there. So I wonder if that will be a pro UCF crowd, which might sound surprising considering VCU is actually closer to South Carolina, or maybe it's not. I don't know how
I think you're right about that, because we've seen that, before with a couple of. But yeah, I do think that it will probably be a pro UCF crowd with Johnny there, with those Duke fans making the trip down from the Triangle. And supporting their favorite son. I don't see why not. I think that would be it's good for UCF. The more people cheering for UCF in the building, the better, regardless of who they cheer for regularly. So approximately 9:40 p.m. tip. It'll be one of the last games on Friday of the first round. Jim Nance, Grant Hill, Bill Raftery on CBS. So that should be.
By the way, last year, A&M and North Carolina in the Sunday block in the second round, 9.5 million viewers. Think about you could have potentially up to 9 million viewers watching UCF basketball on a Sunday after a few million people watching on a Friday night.
That's up there with the bowl games that we've had the last couple of years.
Yeah, it would destroy anything that they've watched in the regular season. That's how significant this tournament is, and that's why it's so big that they got into the tournament. And that's why I think they're in a great spot here, and hopefully they represent themselves well, which I think they will. Free throw shooting is a concern, Murph. I will point that out. That's the other way they could lose this game, is if they have one of those games where they just can't make a free throw. That will be my other concern.
You want the stupidest stat in the world?
Yes. I love stupid stats.
UCF is shooting somewhere like 330. Like among the 353 teams in Division I, UCF is like around 330 in free throw shooting. We know they're bad, whatever. Their opponents, for some reason, are shooting the third worst rate of any team in D1.
Bad free throw shooting is contagious.
There's really no explanation for this, but as bad as you think UCF's free throw shooting is, their opponent's free throw shooting per game is almost the worst in the nation.
It's fantastic.
Well, you know what's funny? When they've been successful, one of the things, even though UCF has struggled from the free throw line, one thing they have done is they've gotten to the free throw line a lot, and a lot of that is because people foul Taco Fall a lot. But there's been a majority of the games this year, UCF has actually made more free throws than their opponent has actually attempted. So they've been very good at winning that free throw battle, which ironically, Johnny Dawkins, that's something that Mike Krzyzewski's philosophy is as well at Duke. So we'll see how that goes, but that's a great stat. I love that.
Yeah, so we'll be seeing how that goes on Friday night. Now, before you tune into the men's game on Friday night, segue, the women are playing at 7:00. By the way, so we talked about how busy it was. Well, guess what? UCF women's basketball is a 12 seed and got into the tournament. And by the way, you guys were there with them at the watch party for the bracket reveal, which ended up being, well, let's just say that things did not quite go according to plan on Monday. So
it was a cluster blank, Jeffrey.
Yes, it was a cluster indeed. So apparently, mid-afternoon around 3:30, 3:45 on ESPNU, word started getting around on Twitter that the women's basketball bracket had been leaked accidentally by ESPN on not their bottom line, but on the graphic that they put on the side where they show 4 matchups at a time. And lo and behold, that turned out to be correct. It made its way around Twitter pretty quickly. And within an hour and a half, ESPN decided, you know what, we're just going to reveal the bracket because everyone, we blew it. And it turns out that, yes, UCF was in the bracket. They are a 12 seed, first at-large bid in school history. They are playing the number 5 seed, Arizona State, in the Coral Gables sub-regional in the first round. Miami and Florida Gulf Coast are playing in the other side of that. Tip-off is scheduled for Friday at 7 p.m. Down at Coral Gables at what they used to call the Convocation Center. Now they call it the Watsco Center. But Arizona State is 20-10 on the season, making their 6th appearance in the NCAA. Neither of these teams, or 6 consecutive appearances in the NCAAs, I should say. Well, let's go back to Monday first, because this was just so weird. We have the reaction from Coach Abe and from KK Wright. You guys were there and talked to him. I mean,
yeah, me and Murph got a chance to talk to Coach Abe and KK Wright, which will play their reaction there in this bizarre day. Unfortunately, it was one of those things where by the time we got there, we all knew what was going on. So that was a little strange, but it was nonetheless still a lot of joy there. Still a lot of joy.
Well, it kind of took away the drama, because, and it kind of took away the drama and some of the power of the reaction, because, as it turned out, they kind of barely snuck in, right?
Well, if you want to believe that.
As a 12 seed, that's lower than we thought. I mean, this team had an RPI of...
Wink, wink. Wink, wink. Yeah, 12 seed, right.
Well, I mean, this team had let's put it this way. This team had an RPI of, in the top 15, and 26-6, and they seed him 12th? What's up with that?
You want me to give you the answer?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. They were determined, and I believe, and I said this in last week's episode. Yeah. I had a feeling they were going to be placed in Coral Gables no matter what, even if that meant dropping a seed or two, which is, I think, what happened here. I don't believe they were truly the last team in the field. I believe they were going to be in the field all this time, but they were going to put them in Coral Gables because the committee of women's basketball has decided to follow the page, take a page out of softball, take a page out of soccer and volleyball, and regionalize this sport. And so one of the things they've done is, if you notice, they have 3 teams in the state of Florida playing in Coral Gables with Arizona State. I would have believed that UCF was the last team in if, let's say, they were a 12 seed in, like, you name me another region there, like Spokane or something.
Yeah, okay.
Then I would buy it. But the fact that they're in Coral Gables is laughable. I think they did that just to make it fake drama. That's what I call this. All this women's basketball, and I'm kind of partly glad they got leaked, because I thought the committee is typical incompetence, and I think it was a shameful thing they've done, because I think they've created fake drama for no reason. They created that stupid debatable 8 drama, which is idiotic. And wow, what a shocker. Tennessee got in. Let's see. They haven't missed an NCAA tournament in women's basketball ever. Shocking that they got in. And then they try to pull this little drama about UConn being a 2 seed, but they get to play Louisville and Albany. So give me a break. What a joke. What a joke.
Hope your speakers aren't and earphones aren't smoking from that hot take. Let's go ahead and listen to Coach Abe and KK Wright discussing the team's at-large bid.
Well, Coach, your reaction there, getting into the NCAA tournament, first time for the program since 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wonderful. I'm so elated that especially our seniors get to continue to play and get that opportunity to be in the NCAA tournament. I mean, the 4 of them have really, the 4 that have been with us the whole time for 3 years, I mean, have really, set the foundation for this program, and now they get to really go out as seniors, in the NCAA tournament. And so I'm really excited for them that they get to enjoy this opportunity.
As a 12th seed, though, you've got to also staying in state, playing down south.
Yes, but I would like to go someplace else and play somebody different. You know what I mean? But I think they do that a lot for storylines, and they do that, maybe to keep the families able to come to the games and stuff. So I think it's great for, especially all the Florida schools.
I was very happy. This is a great accomplishment for my teammates and I, my coaches. We haven't been here for our program, so it's the first in our history. So we're really excited, and we're thrilled to, be here and playing in Florida. So I'm very excited to be in the NCAA tournament.
All right, that was Coach Abe and then KK Wright talking about. By the way, UCF is an 8.5-point underdog in this game against Arizona State. Ooh. What do we make of that?
Where do you find women's basketball?
This is at 5 dimes.
This is some offshore.
Listen. It was its domain is .eu. So
yeah,
make of that what you will. It was the top search result.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
That's the site of the degenerate's degenerate.
Oh yeah,
basically.
Yeah. If you have to go that far to find it, I mean, that's you are
impressive, Jeffrey. I'm impressed.
It is what it is. Yeah. So
I could tell you this. Having talked to the coaching staff, and we've talked about ad nauseum in the past on this podcast about seeding. Do you benefit from being, in a 10 in the 9 in the men's seed and all that? I think the women benefited greatly from being a 12 in women's. I'd rather be a 12 in women's basketball than say be a 9 or a 10, where you're playing a top 2 seed. I think they got a pretty good draw when Arizona State has to travel all the way to Florida. Who knows how many Arizona State fans will actually travel to Coral Gables. And I'll give you this little nugget that one of the coaching staff members told me and reminded me about this, which is great. If you recall, Coach Abe, prior to UCF, was at Albany. In 2016, Albany played in a regional as a 12 seed against number 5 seed Florida in Syracuse. Now, Jeffrey, you went to school in Syracuse. Can you bus from Albany to Syracuse? Wouldn't you say that's a similar bus trip to kind of, Orlando to Coral Gables?
It's about a 2.5-hour bus trip.
Yeah. And Albany knocked off Florida 61-59 in the Carrier Dome, and beat Florida and upset them in a 12 versus 5 matchup. That's the same coaching staff, and now here they are a few years later at UCF as a 12 seed against Arizona State, a 5 seed. Very similar setting, similar situation with this staff. So I think they're deep down, they're actually happy to be a 12 seed. They've had experience here, and they can. I think they're confident enough if they play well, they can at least beat Arizona State and probably take their chances against Miami and Florida Gulf Coast. It's not like those teams are unbeatable. So it wouldn't shock me if UCF somehow got to the Sweet 16 with the way they play defense, with the size they have. The big question is going to be, they haven't been here before. These players haven't been here before. So how do the players react to this? I think will be very interesting. But I think the fact they're going to stay in state is going to help them from a nerve standpoint and all that. Don't you think, Murph?
Yeah, I mean, you're basically, you're not in your own bed, but it's comforting to be in your home state. I know the players love it. I mean,
parents get to come down too,
Yeah, I mean, they want their families to be there, and I don't think Arizona State's families are, maybe a couple of the higher-ups, but most of their fan base and their families can't make it down to Miami or Coral Gables area, so it's great for UCF. And so, yeah, I think, like you said, they have I would say, a pretty good shot here because of the proximity and that sort of familiar surroundings, that comfort of staying in state and with more people supporting you in the stands. So, I think the 12 seed and the gap between the seeds is not something that I really care about, because really UCF is probably more of a 10.
I would say this note, a little key note here. 2 key UCF players are actually from South Florida. Kayla Thigpen's from West Palm Beach. She's a senior. She went to Palm Beach Lakes High School. Another senior, Jamisha Paul from Pompano Beach, Dillard High School, not too far away. By the way, Jamisha on senior day, she had a spectacular number of family and friends with her at that game. There must have been like 40 people at that game with Jamisha Paul shirts on. So I imagine that they would be making the rather short trip or shorter trip down to Coral Gables for the game. You also get Ty Willis is also from Miramar, which is not too far away. Of course, Brittany Smith is from Orlando. Nia Schuler's from Orlando. Diamond Battles from Winter Haven. And, of course, KK Wright from Orlando. So that's a 3-hour drive for their folks. There should be there should be quite a few UCF people, I think, in the stands for that game. Arizona State, interestingly enough, they finished the season ranked in the top 25. Lost to UCLA in their last game in the Pac-12 tournament in Las Vegas after having beaten Colorado. But one common opponent for both teams was Tulsa. Arizona State defeated Tulsa 70-52, but that was all the way back on December the 2nd. So they are one of the better scoring defenses in the country, and I think they were first in the Pac-12 in scoring defense overall. So this is two kind of similar styles for these two teams. It should be a very defensive game. The over-under, I think it was in the 110s.
Oh,
but
my goodness.
Yeah, so
great over-unders in women's hoops, only here on the Banner.
Hey, listen, we're gonna be informed here. You're gonna listen to us. You're gonna be informed even more so that you want. So here's your viewing plan for Friday night. Wow. You're gonna have the women at 7, and I would imagine that's going to be on ESPN. At the very least, it's going to be on ESPN 3, where you can watch
ESPN 2. It's supposed to be on ESPN 2. It is regional coverage, so it depends on what region you're in. This is not a national. It's not like the men's where it's a single game. It's
right.
It is.
Well, it's like the
regional,
old. It's the old way CBS used to do the men's tournament, where you could.
Yeah, that's a weird way.
Before it went to Turner and True TV and all that, is like they would have regional coverage, but the only college basketball game would be on CBS, and then they would bounce around at halftime or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like the old way. But we should be getting that game on ESPN 2 at 7 o'clock, and that's the first game of the session, I think. So
in the evening session, yeah. They have afternoon session as far as across the country. But you're right, first game in the Coral Gables game. Yep.
And then when you get out of that, you probably have a few minutes before the men start in case the Duke game runs long, which it most likely will.
Yes,
9:40 scheduled tip. It'll probably be. I mean, they might be pushing 10 o'clock by the time that game gets underway. So that's your.
Let me ask you, because Danny White even referenced this on Sunday when they on the watch party for the men and stuff. He wanted to go to both games, and he was actually prepared to fly back and forth. He cannot do that at least Friday, because they're playing in the same day. To me, I've said this for years. I think the women's basketball needs to separate themselves by a couple of weeks from the men's season, kind of like what softball does with baseball and soccer does. It's nobody's. Unfortunately, you're going to get lost here. To go head to head with men's basketball is insane to me, just insane. No wonder Gino flips out on the media, but it's just unfortunate because they should be getting more attention, but they're not, because they're going to be on the same night as the men. I mean, that's just reality.
Well, I think it used to be that they would go Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then they moved it to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So,
yes.
I mean, I don't know. It's going to get lost in the shuffle one way or the other. I don't know if you can shorten the season all that much, but...
Well, I'm just saying, if the women were to start the tournament during the last week or so of the regular season in men's basketball, I think you would gain more of a attraction than literally going head-to-head against the most popular tournament in the United States. I mean, it just is. I mean, it's tough from a media standpoint. I mean, we will have somebody out down there, but we're freelancing it. So
Let me play devil's advocate for you. Are you sure you want 80 to 30 blowouts on national TV all over the place in the first round? You get to hide the first round, and the matchups get better in the second round. Start getting better at least.
Well, some people would say the Sweet 16. Real quick, I think, and we've talked about this all year, Jeffrey, who is going to be the second scorer? Who's going to step in to being that second or third scorer? Because you got to believe Arizona State defensively is going to focus on KK Wright, and that's my concern here. UCF has struggled when teams have focused, locked in on KK Wright. So who's going to be that second? Is it going to be a McDonald? Is it going to be a Thigpen? Is it going to be who's going to be? They're going to need scoring from somebody else other than KK Wright to pull off this upset. Don't you agree?
I agree. Yeah, I mentioned in our roundtable that Jeremy Brenner's been working on. I would like to see Sydney McDonald get some run out here, because she's been actually UCF's best 3-point shooter on a team that does not shoot threes. And if teams are going to double KK, she's going to be open, and she's got to be ready to knock down some open shots. She's been doing that in the latter part of the season. I want to see a little bit more of that drive and kick game. I'd like to see Masni Kaba get involved down low, and get Kayla Thigpen going also, because I think when Kayla goes, so goes UCF. So 7 o'clock, ESPN 2, the women on Friday, the men at 9:40 on CBS. You have all the information now that you need going forward for this. All right, so speaking of television, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk with, or we're going to present our interview, rather, with Michael Smith of Sports Business Journal and Sports Business Daily, talk about the American Athletic Conference's new TV contract with ESPN, and the three of us will break that down immediately afterwards. Stick around. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, and we're back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy with you as we improvise a little bit here. Well, not too much improvisation, but our interview today on our show is probably one of the best that we've done in a while. So UCF and the American Athletic Conference at large have agreed to a new television contract with ESPN. It came out on Tuesday. John Arand and Michael Smith of Sports Business Journal and Sports Business Daily broke the story. Details were a little we pretty much got the 30,000-foot view of it from their story. But bottom line is it's a contract that goes from 2020, 2021 through 2031, 2032. Over $1 billion committed to the American by ESPN. And that ups the yearly per school payout from approximately $2 million as it is now to $6.94 million per year. So a 250% approximate increase over the years going to UCF. There's no grant of rights. So teams can come and go from the American without having to give up their television dollars for the length of the contract. ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, the primary places for football, basketball, although there will be an increased presence of Saturday games on ABC, which is good. Also, a significant portion of football games and a majority of men's basketball games will be shown on ESPN Plus, which is ESPN's new standalone streaming service. That's been met with some mixed reaction from UCF fans, but we talked with Michael Smith about the whole deal, and we're going to break it down afterwards here in a little bit. But here is our interview with Michael Smith of Sports Business Journal and Sports Business Daily talking about the new American Athletic Conference TV contract. And joining us now, one of the guys who broke the story of the American Athletic Conference's media deal with the ESPN family of networks, Michael Smith from Sports Business Journal and Sports Business Daily, joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Smitty, SBJSBD on Twitter. How are you, Mike? Busy day yesterday, huh?
It was a busy day and a lot of news coming out, and appreciate you having me to talk about it.
We appreciate you taking time for us, man, because I know this was really complicated, and a lot of UCF fans have been looking forward to this because they have an inordinate interest in the media deal with the American. But the terms, I'll just go over them just really quick. It's a 12-year contract. It starts in 2020, 2021, so there's still one more year under the current contract. It goes through 2031, 2032. The American gets $83.3 million as a whole per year, so that works out to just under $7 million per year to each school. Then that's up from about $2 million a year that each school is receiving. There's no grant of rights. There's going to be more football on ABC. And you guys also reported that there's going to be some football and a majority of basketball games going to ESPN Plus, along with the league's Olympic sports. So I guess our first question to you here is, let's pretend for a moment that I think this is a good deal, but let's pretend for a moment that I am cranky UCF fan and I'm upset that the American didn't get $10 million a year per school. Tell me why this is how it worked out for the American in terms of the market for its content.
Well, there's a lot of layers to that. First and foremost is the amount of money going to the schools. At $7 million a year, that's not anywhere close to Power 5 money, like what you might see in the SEC, which is in the low 40 millions per school per year. At the same time, it's almost 4x compared to what they were making before. And so, every conference wishes they had gotten a little bit more money, but there's a couple of reasons why the American wanted to stay with ESPN. First and foremost, the visibility and exposure that comes with that, the ability to take all of their content to ESPN Plus. I mean, if you think about it, what the American's going to have on ESPN Plus is basically like having a conference network. It's not going to be branded that way. It's going to be branded ESPN Plus. But essentially all the content that the American's going to be able to put on ESPN Plus is very similar to the amount of live content that you might see on an SEC network or an ACC network. So beyond that, there are some intangibles also with being with ESPN. Most of the Americans' bowl tie-ins are with ESPN-owned bowls. ESPN also owns a lot of basketball tournaments, especially around the holidays, that where they can offer spots to teams from the American. But if I'm a UCF fan, I'm probably thinking mostly about what it means for the future of the program, and there's enough of an increase there to be able to comfortably pay coaches and to probably add to the staff. At the same time, it's not anywhere near enough to make you think twice if the Big 12 does come calling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's no grant of rights in this deal, which I think a lot of UCF fans look at and say, well, that's good because that enables UCF, if they do get the call, to go to another conference and basically pay no essential financial. I mean, obviously there could be some legal wrangling here and there if that does come to pass. But how serious that was floated a few months ago? How serious was that grant of rights talk, and did it really, or was it basically a non-starter when it got floated?
No, it was discussed in detail. I mean, we've been covering this story since late November, early December, when it first became known to us that the grant of rights was on the table and the American was exploring the possibility of that. Primarily, well, for two reasons. The grant of rights would have kept the conference together long term, and secondly, it would have increased the rights fee coming from ESPN, because ESPN would pay more to have that stability of knowing that UCF and Cincinnati and Memphis and Houston and those blue chip schools in the conference are going to stay in the conference, and they're making that commitment. So the hope was to be able to get maybe something closer to $10 million per school in that case, but obviously they wound up closer to $7 million without the grant of rights, and so that's just the trade-off. But no, those conversations were real. They were going on in detail in December, especially up in New York, the week of the National Football Foundation banquet up in New York, which is a big week for college football and where all the athletic directors and commissioners are together. Mm-hmm. And from that point on, we kind of followed it as the grant of rights was discussed and then eventually discarded as a possible outcome.
Did the American Conference, there's been some chatter about who has leverage and who doesn't anytime these type of deals happen, and this was an exclusive window of a negotiations. Had the American let that expire and taken this elsewhere, was there a market for the American Conference? Because I've heard things like Fox would not have been interested because they just let go of the Big 12 title game, the rights to that. CBS, I heard, they just invested in the Alliance in that football league, and the Mountain West contract is coming up, and that hasn't gone well. Would they have had a market out there, or was really ESPN the only viable option for the American?
Well, that's a great question, because what's happening in the media landscape now is you have ESPN as a willing spender, because they're trying to build up ESPN Plus as a really viable streaming business. And so they're out there spending money with conferences outside the Power Five in order to increase the amount of content they can deliver on that platform. Now, Fox, you're exactly right. Fox pulled out of a deal where it gave up 3 Big 12 championship football games, and they proclaimed to be in a more reasonable spending posture right now. There doesn't seem to be a desire from CBS. I think there's some desire from NBC, but has to be the right deal. I think Mike Oresco did the right thing, taking what he had, taking the opportunity that was in front of him to stay with ESPN. And there are some conferences that are looking at alternative ways to distribute their live content through, like Conference USA, I think, has 4 different partners. The Mountain West has had multiple partners. The American liked the idea of having all of its games on, one network. When you're going to look for the UCF game, it's going to be on ESPN or ESPN2 most likely. And if you're going to find a UCF baseball game, it's going to be on ESPN Plus. There's no searching, there's no wondering is it on or what platform it's on, and to need a subscription or whatever. You know what you're getting into with ESPN Plus, and so there's there's some stability that comes with that.
No question about that. And Dana White and UFC, they just redid their deal with ESPN Plus and having their pay-per-views there, and it's been a big boost for UFC and ESPN, and that's been promoted across the platforms. What's your thoughts on ESPN Plus since it's kind of launched and how it's doing? They've got content in there. They're grabbing content. They have sports now like UFC and boxing. They're adding the American, which is to date right now their best package as far as college conference is concerned, and I'm sure they're going to try to add more. And they have other programming. What's because I think a lot of reaction has been, wait a minute, we're moving content into ESPN Plus subscription. So kind of tell the audience that may not be familiar about ESPN Plus and then what's kind of the vision there.
Well, it kind of makes me laugh when a lot of the reaction on Twitter is ESPN Plus. No way. I got to pay for it now. It's $5 a month.
Right.
I mean, come on. I've been a subscriber since ESPN Plus launched. My school, my alma mater is Appalachian State. They're in the Sun Belt Conference. The Sun Belt Conference has all their games like the American on ESPN and ESPN Plus. And I know that when I want to go watch an App State baseball game on a Saturday afternoon, it's going to be on ESPN Plus. And I just as a subscriber, just like any of your listeners, I found there to be pretty good value. I'm not into UFC. I don't watch any of the boxing. I don't watch any of the international soccer. But I want to be able to watch my school. And if you think about it from the standpoint of like long tail economics, there's probably enough subscribers out there like that, or potential subscribers out there where they just want to see their school play, and they're probably willing to come up with $5 a month that it's worthwhile. I mean, there's no greater business initiative at ESPN right now than ESPN Plus. It is the most important thing they're working on. It's a topic of conversation in every negotiation that ESPN is having, and my feeling is probably that if ESPN is putting this much heft behind it, that it's probably gonna go pretty well.
What's interesting about that, Mike, and you brought it up. UCF right now and the American, they split their games between the ESPN family and CBS Sports Network, and I want to ask you about CBS in a second. But I'm a cord cutter myself, all right, and I subscribe to YouTube TV. I used to be on PlayStation View. I had to pay an extra $5 or $10 a month, I forget what it was, to get the sports tier just to get CBS Sports Network. So there's that amount. Plus, if I want UCF Olympic sports, which I do, I'm also paying $7.99 a month to UCFKnights.tv, which is run through New Lion. So by being able to subscribe to ESPN Plus for just $5 a month, I'm getting all that extra stuff and actually saving money in the long term. So, and the other thing too is that it's not just $5 a month. It's also, if you subscribe annually, it's $50 for the year, which is actually a discount of $10 from the monthly price too. So, so they're looking at this from, I think, also from a cord cutting perspective, where the American is diving in first with this. Well, I wouldn't say first because, like you said, the Sun Belt and some of the other conferences, but they're the biggest conference to really do this, right?
Absolutely, they are, and the American was really, really important because it's the, except for the Big 12, it's the biggest conference out there that did not have a conference network.
Right.
And so, this was ESPN's best opportunity to get, like I said, to get blue chip schools like UCF and Cincinnati, Memphis, Houston, and so on, and to get their content. And what else is important here is that when the American has produced obviously some very compelling storylines over the last few years. If you look at obviously UCF's football winning streak, Houston basketball going 31-3, the whole Penny Hardaway thing at Memphis. There are some compelling stories coming out of this league on a pretty consistent basis now, and ESPN will own those stories because they've got all the content. And so that's what they're about.
Right.
They consider themselves the leader in college sports, and this certainly adds to it. Something else to watch outside of the American with the Big 12 is that conference does have about 14 football games and about 60 men's basketball games that don't have a consistent home. And I would imagine that when their deal comes up, that ESPN Plus is going to be a factor in those conversations.
Interesting. Go ahead, Eric.
And by the way, Kansas, I believe their basketball games, some of their basketball games are already on ESPN Plus. That's not nationally televised. So I think that's a great point to expand. I want to ask you about the CBS Sports Network and ESPN News, and if you want to throw ESPNU, that's fine. Because those are, I've kind of stated since this came out that I feel like the majority of those games that the American used to have on those channels will now be on ESPN Plus. And some people, and Jeff brought up how you get up to CBS Sports Network. Just tell the audience about how's the outlook on CBS Sports Network, how it's doing and moving forward, and ESPN News. What are they going to do with that channel? Because there's been speculation about whether that channel, becomes like ACC Network. Do they dump it? Do they get rid of the channel? Do they turn it into something else? What can you tell us about those channels in the future? Because I think some people might be surprised that those channels don't bring in the viewers and the exposure that they think it does.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't have a lot of insight on those two networks. ESPN News is a great gives ESPN a great position of flexibility because a lot of times if a game is running long, they can start the next game on ESPN News and kind of direct viewers from one channel to another so that they don't miss any of the game that they want to watch the most. I've heard some of the same things you've heard about ESPN News becoming the ACC network. I don't think that's what's going to happen. And CBS Sports Network is, I wouldn't say they have a lot of great premium content except maybe for, Navy football is in the past has been pretty strong except for last season. But they do have a lot of content. It's just not the premium, Power 5 content that we're used to seeing. But, with that cable network, they can do some things like show some older games, older SEC games that CBS has the rights to, and so that gives them a little additional programming. But I can't really say that there are many examples out there where CBS Sports Network has been a major factor in negotiations for premium college sports content.
All right, go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Well, and I just want to expand too, going back to the ESPN Plus and all the basketball and the football and the Olympic sports. I believe, if I understand it, I think basically ESPN's paying the schools to produce it in a lot of ways, kind of like SEC Network. When you go watch SEC Network Plus, it's very produced by the universities. Those schools, is that kind of what we're going to see here as well in this deal, where a lot of schools can produce those or sell the production to a company locally and produce a lot of those games?
Well, every athletic department now is essentially a media entity, especially in the Power 5. If you have a conference network, you have the wherewithal to produce live events and often multiple live events at the same time. Most of the schools now have 3 or 4 control rooms. They have the ability to run video from not only their football and basketball video boards, but also soccer video boards and baseball video boards out at those venues. So any school that's not producing their own live content or have that ability is getting left behind these days, because behind facilities and coaches' salaries, media equipment like control rooms and HD cameras and that sort of thing is one of the biggest expenses that athletic departments have now. But so like we talked about before, the arrangement with ESPN Plus being like an SEC network, the schools will be able to produce their own content, and there is some income that comes from that with from ESPN Plus on that.
Right, and UCF has been doing that for a while now through their UCFKnights.tv channel, which I would guess is them and probably a lot of the other schools in the American that do so sort of in a Big 12 third-tier type atmosphere. That's going to go away and go to ESPN Plus. 2 quick questions, and then we'll get you out of here because I know how busy you are. First thing is going to be a short question. You and John mentioned in your article that football, along with men's and women's basketball, will retain ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPNU, but the majority of basketball games and a significant number of the football games will go to ESPN Plus. When you say significant number, do you kind of have an idea of like what sort of percentage would that be? Because they're not going to put Tulsa and Tulane on every one of their games on ESPN Plus. They're going to want to put some marquee games occasionally on there. No?
For sure. My understanding is that the number of football and men's basketball games on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU will be very similar to what it's been in the past. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about non-conference games against lesser opponents, maybe games earlier in the season. That's what I'm thinking about when I think of football and basketball games going to ESPN Plus.
Okay.
I don't think for the most part that fans will notice a significant difference in the amount of exposure the American is getting on the primary ESPN, ESPN2 platforms.
Gotcha. And then the last question for you, and you can expand on this as much or as little as you like. It seems like with the American, the cloud of conference expansion and realignment is always sort of hanging over, not somewhere around the horizon. This is a long deal. It goes through 2031, 2032. $7 million a year is one thing now, but it's another thing, in the 2030s. If you're a fan of UCF, Houston, USF, Memphis, Cincinnati, some of those brands in the American that have flirted with conference expansion before, be it with the Big 12 or whatever else may come down the road, what's the time frame that you're looking at, and what are going to be some of the signs that we see that the expansion machine is starting to crank back up again?
Well, the first indicator to me is going to be this time period of 2022, 23, 24, when the Big 10, Big 12, and Pac-12 all have their TV rights come up for renewal. Mm. Typically, if you look at it historically, the most of the college realignment has happened either before or during TV talks. And that's because conferences are trying to enhance their value. They go to the negotiating table. They sit there with the different parties that are bidding. They don't like, what they're hearing in terms of value. Mm-hmm. Well, if we go add School X, how much does that increase our value versus one more mouth to feed at the conference membership table? So, I think Mike Oresco and the American are to be applauded for getting this deal done, but you got to remember we're just a couple years away from the Power 5 schools going back to the table to get more money for their deals, and we always talk about the haves and the have-nots in college athletics. So, the haves, when they go back to the table, the Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, they're going to get more money. And that's going to widen the gap even further between the Power 5 and those outside the Power 5. And the Americans just right in between there. They certainly are a notch above the other conferences in the Group of 5. they're a long way, especially if you count it financially, they're a long way from the Power Five. And so I don't know that this deal does anything to close that gap at all. But at the same time, it was, probably about as good as they could do, given where we are in the current landscape.
I think you're absolutely right about that, and we'll have to see how it works out. I personally am excited to see, more UCF and American sports from a quantity perspective on ESPN Plus, because we cover the Olympic sports quite a bit as well, and those are always fun to watch, and we think the American has a pretty good product on that. So, all right, Michael Smith from Sports Business Journal and Sports Business Daily. How can folks get in touch with you, Mike?
Well, probably the best way is on Twitter at Smitty SBJSBD, and our magazine content is available online at sportsbusinessjournal.com.
Yeah, if you want to follow anything that's going on within the world of sports business and sports media business, that's definitely where you want to go. And I believe you're also contributing to a new college sports business newsletter. Is that right?
Yeah, we've launched a couple of different newsletters this week. One is called SBJ Media, which runs Mondays and Wednesdays, and SBJ Colleges, which is a newsletter on Tuesday and Thursday. And so those give us an opportunity to kind of take the news of the day and then do some analysis, put it in context, try to add some perspective. It's not really a hot take of the day. It's not intended to be a lot of opinion, but it's more so just an opportunity to add some perspective to the news that's already out there.
Yeah, you guys leave the hot takery to guys like me and Eric. Thanks, Mike. We really appreciate your time and your tremendous insight. Stay in touch. Definitely a tremendous follow. Smitty SBJ SBD for all the latest from Sports Business Journal and Sports Business Daily. Michael Smith. Thanks, Mike.
You guys do a great job. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks again to Mike for his insight. And once again, a reminder, don't forget to follow him at Smitty SBJ SBD on Twitter. All right, Eric Lopez and Brian Murphy, what do we make of this television contract based on the details that we got from Mike? I mean, this is ESPN Plus basically becomes the de facto American TV contract or TV network. And I know there's a lot of fans that are going to be like, great, now I got to pay for this extra thing. But first of all, you're already paying for one giant paywall with your cable bill. And second of all, it's, you can get ESPN Plus for $50 for the year, and you get not just, probably one or two UCF football games a year, a bulk of the basketball games that you would see on like CBS Sports Network or ESPN 3, and you get the other sports too, right?
Right, it's like basically it's the entire non-conference schedule for the most part, like kind of all those UCF Bethune-Cookmans and UCF Stetson games. Those are the games that are going to be on ESPN Plus. And I think for the football game, if I had to break down the football schedule, it'd probably be like the FAMU game. I mean, those are the type of games we're talking about. Yes, you would throw in an occasional, some conference games like a UCF Tulsa game. I mean, that's just but I thought Michael brought it up pretty well. I mean, it's not like people have this idea like somehow they're going to lose all their coverage on ESPN, which is, ridiculous. I mean, look at UFC and how it's benefited from being on ESPN Plus with ESPN. They've been promoted across the platform. And, I think Michael brought it up. I mean, the biggest thing is the league wanted to be with ESPN. This is a win-win for everybody. For the league, they stay on ESPN, which is the network. That is the network. If you're a college program, if you're a college conference, you better be associated with ESPN, because if you're not, you're pretty much forgotten. Just ask Conference USA, the Mountain West, etc. So I think they benefit from that coverage. I think it's a lot easier now for fans to actually follow your favorite team. I think the big winners in this are baseball and softball and volleyball and soccer, because they're going to get more coverage. Under the current system, if you're a baseball guy like Sam Unger, our good friend who watches UCF baseball, he's probably paying for UCF Knights TV to watch all the baseball home games. Then he's probably got to pay, if he wants to watch video, for certain at other school sites for certain road games, like Houston. If they go to Houston, you got to pay to watch those games. Later this year when they go to Wichita State, you got to pay for that service. Now in this new deal, Sam only has to pay ESPN Plus to watch all of those games. You can even watch other teams in the league play. So it's kind of like a network in a way, like Michael brought up, and they're getting more money. They're getting more money for all the schools. And they have now a structure. I know some people are caught off by the 12 years, but if you're the American, now you know that you're going to be around 12 years from now. Yeah. You don't know. We may not know which teams will be in there, but your league is stable. And that's the biggest thing that, and fans, I get it. They're biased towards their team and all that. Mike Oresco's not working for UCF. Mike Oresco's not working for USF. He's working for the league, and his job is to make sure the league is flourishing and stable. And that's what they've accomplished with this TV deal. ESPN gets a deal out of this in that they have more content on ESPN Plus, which, as Michael alluded to in the interview, is their most important thing they're working on right now. They want this to be big as far as the future of sports television.
Yeah.
And I think the schools benefit because they get triple money that they were getting, made close to quadruple, and they keep their flexibility of, hey, if we decide to leave maybe in 5 years because another conference comes asking of interest, you can leave and not get penalized. So I think everybody gets something out of this.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that point. And Murph, I want to get to you in a second here, but I'm glad you made that point about Oresco because he takes such flack from UCF fans,
unwarranted by people that are not educated.
And the fact remains, like you said, he doesn't work for just UCF. He works for the entire conference. And if UCF got a bid from the Big 12 or whatever to leave tomorrow, guess what? Mike Oresco is still the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference. And he has to look out for the interests of all of the schools that are there, including the Tulanes and Tulsas, the teams that UCF fans like to hold up as examples of why are we in the same league as these schools. So that's what he was able to do. And the fact that, this league was on the verge of bankruptcy 6 years ago, and he saved it and got them, like you said, nearly a 4X deal in its first contract cycle is pretty remarkable. Murph, you're a crotchety consumer of sports media. What did you think of this?
What? Where did that come from? No, I mean, I feel like this is the immediate reaction was this is a win, right? Like this is kind of the dollar figure neighborhood that we were looking for. People wanted
I think it was more because I was hearing $4 to $6 million a year, and they got $7.
Yeah, and people wanted 10, and that was just unfeasible. Now again, it doesn't, as far as financially, it doesn't really close the gap that much between, the high-end power conferences and the American, but it's certainly a lot better than where you were. It's a lot better than where you were. It's a lot, and ESPN Plus is no joke. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's a flash in the pan. Certainly not its price or the content it offers. I think it's going to stick around. So it's a good platform. It's a great financial benefit. Yeah, I mean, Eric and you guys basically flushes out pretty well in the interview and here. There's really not much you can nitpick and complain about with this thing.
Yeah, ESPN Plus is not. But ESPN Plus is not ESPN the phone. Let's put it that way.
No, I mean, it's already up to 1 million subscribers, and then as Michael brought up, they're gonna get more content in there, and this is gonna be bigger. And Jeff, I'll give you credit for this. You called this a few years ago when you cut cord on your cable. This is the future. This is the future. Everybody's gonna go through the service of subscription. I mean, I'm beginning to wonder if 20 years from now if a lot of people are gonna have cable with technology the way it's going.
I think what you see now is ESPN and the networks recognize that the days of channel surfing are over. You know how you would channel surf between ABC, ESPN, CBS, ESPN2 to try and find a game? People don't do that anymore. People are busy. They got stuff to do. And I saw some people on UCF Twitter complaining about, we won't get the casual viewer. There's no such thing as the casual viewer anymore. People watch their team, okay, and the marquee, and also often but not always whatever marquee game there is. So if you're a college football fan, what are you watching? You're going to watch UCF, wherever they are, and then you're going to watch,
casual fan,
Ohio State and Penn
fan,
State in prime time or whatever.
Correct.
If it's not across from UCF, or you watch, Miami, Florida State, whatever the big game is on Saturday night, or if it's an SEC game, the Saturday afternoon game on CBS. That's what people watch. People don't sit on their couches all day long on Saturday and channel surf to see whatever game is on. It doesn't happen anymore.
No, because you can watch whatever you want. You don't even if you're not a sports fan, you don't have to watch sports nowadays. It used to be that you had no choice. You had to watch what was on TV, but that's not the case. The casual fan is not tuning in to watch UCF play Florida A&M in football. They're tuning in to watch UCF maybe play Cincinnati on ABC on a primetime game with Fowler and Herbstreit. That's when the casual fan's not going to tune in to watch UCF play Stetson on basketball, play Tulsa in March. They're tuning in to watch UCF play VCU on CBS. That's why UCF's numbers will more than double by a game in the NCAA tournament. It's not because all of a sudden, fans, it's easier to find the channel. It's because more casual people are tuning in. So you're 100% correct. Here's the thing. And I talked to some of the people, the coaching staffs and the UCF people, young people today and recruits. All they do is they're online and on their phones watching games. People watch games now on their phones. People watch the games on the computer. People do travel and watch. So to me, the biggest thing is they're still going to be on ESPN. The marquee games are still going to be on cable television. We're just making some of these games that, quite frankly, was dog games, I'll call it, are going to be on ESPN Plus with occasional sprinkle in a UCF Cincinnati basketball game that would be on CBS Sports Network, which, by the way, nobody watches. And I'm a fan of CBS Sports Network, but that's for diehard people only, just like ESPN News are diehard audiences only. ESPNU. If ESPNU had this huge audience, we would have had more than one guy tweet about the leakage of the women's basketball bracket. It would have had thousands of people leakage. So I think people have overreacted to it. I think it's a win-win for everybody. I'm excited for all the sports because they're all going to be carried. They're going to get more exposure and more coverage, and I think that's good.
Murph, you were going to chime in with something?
No, I think I was just laughing at something Eric said about CBS Sports Network.
Gosh,
that's all.
So
casting aspersions on CBS Sports Network.
So listen, and by the way, for the people that are complaining that it's only 7 million, what number would have satisfied you that was realistic?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to bring this up because we both have been hearing that, and we asked Mike about the whole grant of rights thing, and that was a real thing, and it turned out that the schools in the American decided not to go that way. But I would have been curious to know, you could have got how much money UCF probably could have gotten, and the other schools in the American could have gotten had they agreed to the grant of rights. And I would imagine it would have been even significantly more. So there was a trade-off there, right? It's either we'll pay you $7 million, but you get no grant of rights, or you keep the marquee brands in the conference through 2032, and we'll pay you 10, maybe 15 million a year. As a fan, all right, if you're the fan complaining about the TV deal, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the more money in the grant of rights or less money, but you can leave at any time? What do you want? Right?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the schools answer that question by saying we want less money and the flexibility to leave. Right. Because even if you get 10 to 15 million, that's not going to come close to the Big 12 money or the ACC money or things like that. So I think it's not, by the way, it's not like Mike Oresco forced this on the schools. The schools agreed to this. So
yeah, they all voted for it.
Including Danny White, who's among the major players.
I should rephrase that. We don't know if they've we actually don't know if they have officially voted for it. We just know that they've come to an agreement with it. The conference has not actually officially announced the TV contract. We should clarify that.
Correct. But, the guys that broke the story are pretty as credible as it gets in the industry. So I take their word for it. But, yeah, I would say that to me is the key there. I think that you want the flexibility because you never know you don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, and I think they have that here. I think the people that are complaining we're going to complain no matter what, and it just is what it is. They're never going to be happy. They live miserable. They like to be miserable a majority of the days and night. They're the same people that
are going to get some hate mail from this. Oh man.
They're the same people that complain about coaching staffs when they only win by 2 touchdowns. I mean, it is what it is. It reminds me, like, I just had this conversation with a Patriot fan who was upset because they didn't get Odell Beckham. And I'm like, right, because you need Odell Beckham to what? Get back to the Super Bowl? Oh, no, wait, you go there anyway. Like, what the hell are you complaining about? Like, get out of here.
Murph, you got your popcorn ready for our Twitter mentions today? This is going to be great.
It's fantastic. I mean, Eric's really on fire. He hasn't told anybody. Well, no. This
episode is going to be on Elo's greatest hits. There's no question about it.
I think he did say the word idiot. So again, going back to our old drinking game, that's a drink.
That's a drink. Okay, yeah, we got to do that. All right. So there it is. What we actually have. I actually broke down the TV deal on blackgoldbanneret.com, at least based on the details that were gleaned from that article. Obviously, new details will be coming out as time goes. Remember that it starts in 2020, 2021, so you still have a full year to sign up for ESPN Plus. I'm already signed up for it. I know, Elo, you're already signed up for it.
I have it. I watch it a lot. I watch boxing. I watch the UFC. I watch Kobe Bryant's got a special there. Peyton Manning has a special there.
You know what I watch on? I watch the hockey. The NHL is on there, yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Again, details will be coming out in time, but again, maybe I'll put this out as a Twitter poll question. What would you rather have? Grant of rights and 10 to 15 mil or no grant of rights and 7? I mean, that would be what I'd want to know from UCF fans. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some baseball. We'll talk some softball. We'll talk some tennis. We got a lot of stuff still on tap. Stick around. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is back after this. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you. blackandgoldbanneret.com, UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret. Follow us each individually at Jeff_Sharon, Spokes_Murphy, and Eric Lopez Elo. Brian is in Columbia, South Carolina, still in that Walmart parking lot.
Yep.
Where trying to fill in his feverishly trying to fill in his bracket in the final moments before they get locked in. And it is against that backdrop that we will ask him about UCF baseball, who are right now 15-6 and having knocked off number 14 Florida State 9-7 in Tallahassee on Tuesday. This on the heels of taking 2 out of 3 from Virginia Commonwealth on the verge or a couple days before the basketball teams matched up. But big W for UCF against the key in-state opponent on the eve of conference play, which begins on Friday, Murph. And going back and taking a look at what UCF was able to do against Florida State, the Bats came alive, particularly at the top of the order. Top 4 hitters in the lineup had a combined 7 hits. Rather, I should say the top 5 order had a combined 8 hits. Anthony George is back. He was 1 for 4 with an RBI, 2 for 4, 3 RBIs for Tyler Osick against Florida State. And the Knights get the victory. They scored 6 in the 5th in that game. Jack Sinclair ended up getting the win, but Jordan Spicer went 3 1/3. Midweek game against the ranked opponent. I know midweeks, but what can we evaluate from that performance against Florida State?
Well, I mean, it's sort of weird because I don't know what to make of this team right now. They can win games like at Florida and at FSU and they're ranked teams, and then they have a series against Penn State, which I don't think is a particularly great team, and they look like they look totally out of sorts. And that was only last weekend or a week and a half ago.
They won 5 in their last 6. I mean, let's give them some
They have
credit.
won 5. So, yeah, I'm getting there. You've given me 15 seconds.
Mr. Going negative right off the bat. All right.
It's just that this team is kind of up and down right now, and I'm not sure what to make of it. But, yes, they have won 5 out of 6. The Bats have come alive. Tyler Osick is currently your reigning player of the week in the American Conference, and that was before his 2-hit and 3 RBI effort against Florida State. So that's good. They need guys like Matthew Micah to step up. He's been kind of slow out of the gates, but has been moved up in the order and has been better recently. I will say again, the problem with this team, the long-term issue that you're gonna have to watch is its dependence on its bullpen. Now the bullpen was fantastic in Tallahassee. They gave 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings. Kyle Kemp got the save. I believe Kyle Kemp gave his first run of the year in that outing, but he's been really magnificent this year. He struck out the side, got out of a huge jam to win the game. Garrett Westberg was good. Jalen Whitehead had 2 scoreless innings. But those guys like Kemp and Westberg and Sinclair and Jeffrey Hackinson, we should mention as well, those guys have been used a lot in this early going. We haven't even reached conference play, which starts on Friday. And I know Lovelady is concerned about how much he's using his bullpen. That's because his starters aren't giving him a whole lot of depth. That was kind of different in the VCU series. Trevor Holloway, I think, threw 7 innings. So they're going to need more of that, though. They're going to need more of that from their starters to go 6-7 and not 5 and 5 1/3. In the midweek, Jordan Spicer was just flat out just bad again, and went 3 1/3. So, look, it's great right now that they're on a little winning jag, and now they face ECU. But I do have long-term concerns with this team because its strength is really the bullpen. As far as its mound strength, it's really the bullpen. But I am worried about how much they're using them this early on, and if that's going to come back to bite them in a month or so from now.
Well, they start conference play this Friday in Greenville, North Carolina, against number 14 ECU Pirates, one of the favorites to win the American. Of course, Cliff Godwin, former UCF assistant under Terry Rooney, still the head coach at ECU. First game of the series, by the way, will be on the American Digital Network, 6:30 on Friday. But you're going to be busy watching. We're all going to be busy watching the basketball. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
I don't know. Brian's going to find a way to sneak that baseball news.
I'm sure he'll have a window open. But this is a very critical early test in conference play. You're going to find out real quick where you stand against this ECU team. I don't know. We know how dangerous they are. What do we expect from this? What would be? I mean, obviously, you want to go. If you're on the road, it's the rule of thumb for me was always get 2 out of 3 on the road, and you can walk out of there happy. Would that be the case here with ECU?
I don't know. If you get 2 out of 3 in any series, you're pretty happy.
Yeah.
Well, fair. Yeah. Unless you're playing Memphis.
Yeah. They need at least one, no doubt. And this ECU team is loaded. Brian Packard was on a ton of preseason player of the year lists. Alec Burleson is hitting over 400 right now. Spencer Brickhouse is a huge power threat. That's just their offense. Then you go to their pitching staff. Jake Kuchmaner, I've been practicing that name. Jake Kuchmaner threw a perfect game a couple weekends ago. I think he was their Sunday starter. So they can. I mean, there's a reason why this team, ECU, is ranked in the top 15 in the nation. It's a gigantic test right out of the gate in conference. We're going to see real quickly where UCF stacks up among the best team in the AAC. They need at least one somewhere, and I think even if they can't win the series, if they're competitive, I think that matters. I think that would still matter even in a losing effort. If they win 1 out of 3, but then make the other 2 look competitive, I think that matters.
Well, ECU is 15-6 on the year, and they've won 3 in a row coming in. They among some of the teams that they've defeated on their schedule, they beat Ole Miss, and they beat Utah in 10 innings as well. Let's see. Well, they actually. Those are 2 of the key wins that they've actually had to this point, and they're coming off of a sweep of the University of Maryland in College Park, by the way, that they took care of business there. So just had it.
They're the defending conference champions. I mean, they're the best team in the league. They're the team to beat. They're talented, and I would recommend. I don't know. I know there's UCF fans maybe driving up to South Carolina as they're listening to this, or going to be up in South Carolina. I believe it's Murph, 3 to 4 hour drive.
It's a 4-hour drive. It's about a 4-hour, 5-minute drive. Not that I've looked it up.
Do you dare on Saturday, Murph? Do you dare?
Well, I really hope UCF wins on Friday because I don't want to. But if they lose on Friday to VCU, I might have to.
Oh, boy.
Well, I talked at the women's basketball watch party. Kevin Reese, who I believe is going up there, he says he's going to do that. He's going to try and go to the baseball game on Saturday. So I think some UCF fans might do that on a Saturday. that don't have, in between games that don't have much else to do. See, Murph's got to actually work. So
yeah.
He can't just take off. Although, if you're listening, feel free to offer Murph a ride to the game and see what happens. Help the guy out a little bit.
We've seen him hitchhiking on the highway between Columbia and Greenville on his way over to see baseball.
But I'll be wearing a fedora. It'll be the saddest sight in the world, yet classy.
Yes, if you see the fedora, you know what to do, UCF fans. All right, so 3-game set. It'll be Friday 6:30, Saturday 4, Sunday noon. You can watch the games the second and third of those games on Pirates All Access on ECU's website. The first game will be on the American Digital Network, so you can catch it there.
In 2 years from now, this will be on ESPN+.
That's right. And actually, all 3 of the games would be on ESPN+, to give you an idea.
More than likely, yeah, more than likely. By the way, quick note, UCF Baseball, 18 in the official RPI after the win against Florida State. Pretty good number.
That's not bad.
I know it's early, but that's a good start. They got wins at Florida and at Florida State. It's the first time they've beaten the Gators and the Noles in the same year since 2011. So they've got a win against Auburn, and that JU series win in VCU, at least as of now, looks good because both of those teams are inside the top 45 in RPI. So building a good resume early. I know, it's early, but that's a good resume builder.
Yep. And speaking of good resume building, that transfers us over to UCF Softball, who are 20-9 on the year, and they are starting conference play against the UConn Huskies at home this weekend, Friday at 6, Saturday 2, Sunday at 11 a.m. They're coming off of a 8-1 victory over Princeton on Wednesday night, and they swept games against Stetson over the weekend on Saturday, 9-1 in 5 innings, and then 6-1 in that doubleheader on Saturday. So they've won 3 in a row coming into conference play. They actually, interestingly enough, they head to Greenville next week, but they're against UConn at home here today, or not today, but this weekend on this really busy UCF sports weekend, and they are ranked in the RPI 37th to be exact, 1 spot ahead of the South Florida Bulls, 5 spots ahead of the Houston Cougars. They're behind Tulsa at 20, who's at 25, and if I'm not mistaken, Eric Lopez, yeah, that's true. Tulsa is the highest-ranked team of the American in the RPI. So, as we begin conference play, we wrap the preseason, as the coaches like to call it. I'll give you the Tony Kornheiser quote. Where are we now?
Well, they're 20-9, so they're playing well. And I kind of this week. I kind of called it the revenge tour week. They knocked off Princeton, a team that split a doubleheader last year with UCF. They now play UConn, who beat UCF last year in UConn in a blizzard, in 30-degree weather, 2 out of 3. And I consider this a revenge week tour because I would argue that those 3 losses were a big reason why UCF did not make the NCAA tournament. So they took care of Princeton first, and now they got a UConn team to start conference play, who's, is, you could argue is maybe the last place team in the league, but they're a scrappy team. I mean, it's weird. They're a very frustrating team to play because, you're in the 5th inning and it's a 2-1 game, and that's kind of how UConn plays. So I'll be curious how UCF comes out against UConn. You mentioned the 37 RPI. That's a good start. The RPIs are going to fluctuate early on here, so I wouldn't obsess about it too much early on, although I do have my first bracketology out on fastpitchnews.com.
Here it comes, Murph. Get your softball bracketology right here from Eric Lopez.
That's right. And I'll give you both the sneak peek here on Black Gold Banneret. I have UCF in as one of 4 teams in the American. As far as a 4-bid league as of now. The American is actually the 6th rated conference in softball right now. They're both 6th in baseball and softball, though baseball is going to, in a matter of maybe the next week or two, move up to number 5 because it was virtually a tie for 5th in baseball. But look, they're in position. This league is tough. The advantage that UCF has is they have USF and they have Houston, who are 2 of the top teams in the league at home. And Leah White's pitching great, and I think they're starting to hit some power. I mean, Aaron Emanuel hit a home run in the Princeton game. Tamisha Glover is having an all-conference type year. She's been their best hitter from day one. You want to talk about a player that has excelled under the new staff and the new approach offensively, it's been Tamisha Glover. She has been phenomenal. And I think those are some positives here as you get into conference play.
Yeah, Misha's been off the hook, and I'm actually trying to pull up her stats as of right now. But I mean, she was always a talented player, and we knew she was. She suffered from some injury problems. But right now, she's hitting .375. She's 30 of 80 at the plate, 9 doubles, 3 homers, and by the way, on base percentage of .463. So, and she's only struck out 5 times. So that gives you an idea of the kind of season that she's having. 7 of 9 on the stolen base department. Yeah, she's making already an early play for first team all conference. No.
Yeah, I mean, she's playing that type of high level, and it's great to see her back 100% healthy. She got hurt 2 years ago, had a significant injury in the conference opener against Houston 2 years ago, and now I think she's 100% and is playing with a lot of confidence, and it's been huge for this team. I mean, she's been very valuable for them, playing good third base. So it's very solid. So, look, it's conference play. You're 0-0 in conference. These are big games now, and we'll see how they come out locked in and against the UConn team that has already been in Florida. They've been in Florida since Tuesday. They beat Bethune-Cookman in a midweek on a Wednesday, so they're getting accustomed and probably enjoying the weather that we have here compared to Storrs, Connecticut, because I haven't met one person that has enjoyed Storrs, Connecticut weather. So, by the way, Connecticut, maybe that's one of the reasons why you might want to be staying in the American Conference instead of trying to go to the Big East. You UConn fans, Anyway,
Eric is now flaming School's other fans. Oh,
well,
man.
By the way, can you let the UConn fans know that they're complaining about it, that the American had just as many teams in the field of 68 in men's basketball that the mighty Big East did, and I would argue has a better future and better coaches from a talent standpoint than the Big East does, but whatever. Yeah, Patrick Ewing's going to lead Georgetown to the promised land.
This is great. This is the best show ever.
Eric, are you okay? Is there something you need to get off your chest?
I think we woke him up a little too early in the morning. Did you not have your coffee this morning?
I'm not a morning guy. This is why I like recording.
This is great. Well, at this rate, we're going to start recording in the mornings all the time. So there's softball against UConn coming up.
Yeah. 6 o'clock,
start
we're on
conference play.
UCF Knights TV on Friday. I will be there calling the game and having UCF basketball on my computer somehow. So I will, and following Murph on Twitter. So I've got a busy weekend ahead.
All right. So, we all have a pretty busy weekend ahead. Everyone's kind of, it's just absolutely crazy going around. And by the way, the craziness continues with tennis, by the way, I should say. I just want to check in on the rankings with UCF women's and men's tennis. I want to start with the women. They are 15-2. They've won. They're on this insanely long losing streak right now, or excuse me, insanely long winning streak. What am I saying? Winning streak. They won on St. Patty's Day against Wichita State 4-0. Took care of business there. They only have 5 regular season matches to go. Tulsa, number 34 Illinois at FIU, and then Oklahoma State, South Florida at home to finish up. By the way, they're at Oklahoma State, I should say. But at 15-2, and I'm checking the ITA rankings, which nobody likes, but here they are anyway. They're 26th, up from 28th as a team, and they're playing. Guess what? Well, they're playing Miami, who's ranked 25th, one spot ahead of them. In terms of the individual rankings, Valeria Zaleva is 41st in the country in singles. Ksenia Kuznetsova is 84th. And then in the doubles rankings as well, Zaleva and Kuznetsova are 31st in the country. So it's been a good year so far for UCF women's tennis. They do play on Friday. Gosh, these teams with all these games happening at one time. Friday at 5 p.m. Down at Lake Nona against Tulsa, and then they play number 34 ranked Illinois on Sunday at noon. They get a week off before they go down to Miami to play FIU. The men's team, they are back on the winning train. They beat South Alabama on Monday, and then on Wednesday they beat number 26 Oklahoma State, swept them 4-0. and they've got 2 matches to go, both of them at home, one against number 13 Illinois, and that is Friday as well at noon at the tennis complex, and then they finish up with Florida Atlantic on the 31st at 6. The men's rankings right now, they're 42nd, down from 33rd after they lost their last matchup, but a chance to get that back against Illinois. On the singles, I'm glad I wanted to pull this up because we haven't given these guys a shout out and they totally deserve it. Gabriel Descamps is 38th in the singles in the ITA rankings, and then in the doubles, we got anyone ranked? Yes, we do. Number 54, Trey Hildebrand and Bogdan Pavel are 54th in the doubles rankings. So congrats to all those players. Keep it going as the tennis season winds down with the American tournament coming up, and of course the NCAAs shortly thereafter. All right, boys, it's just about tournament time. Well, we already know where you are, Murph. You're in Columbia. You'll be following UCF basketball the entire time, and probably risking the drive over to Greenville.
I hope not. No, I hope not. That would
no, Jeffrey.
No, we don't.
Jeffrey,
No.
You don't understand, Jeffrey. If UCF wins, that means I don't have to go to Greenville. So no, again, you should root for your home team.
That's right. Okay, so we are okay. So we will hope that Murph does not have to go to Greenville. Follow _Murphy for the latest on that.
Unless he gets cloned, and then like he could send his clone to baseball and then cover. It's just kind of like I wish I was cloned right now, so I could be at basketball and softball. Because everybody decides to playing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean.
By the way, I will say this: I've never covered a NCAA March Madness tournament game. So I'm not exactly sure. I never have. So I've been to like Final Fours and stuff, but that's a humble brag. So I don't know.
Did you just throw in? Oh yeah, Final.
In the Final Fours,
yes.
I mean, what's seen one, seen them all, you know.
I was at the Chris Webber No Timeout Final Four in New Orleans in '93.
Oh, wait a minute. You were a youngin' at that one, man.
Yeah, I was 8. I fell asleep during the semifinal game between North Carolina and Kansas. Yeah,
that was the really good game too, wasn't it?
No. North Carolina with Eric Montross absolutely crushed them.
Donald Williams.
But I will say, so I don't know the kind of like how many media credentials are usually handed out for these kinds of first round games. I will say there have been nearly 600 credentialed media members for this pod that includes Duke, Virginia, and UCF.
Well, yeah, that's why Duke and Virginia. I mean, it's I hate saying it, but it's true. So enjoy it. It's a ton of basketball. It's going to be fun. I know you're going to have a lot of fun up there, Murph, and I'll be banging the notifications on my phone from your Twitter account throughout the weekend. Ela, what you got coming up? I know you're not traveling to UConn for softball, but it's still going to be.
That's why.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah. Why was I thinking that they'd be in store? I don't know. I'm out of my mind. So they are here, and you will be doing those games.
I will be doing that. That's why I said earlier I will be watching. I'll be calling the game while following Murphs on Twitter and watching UCF
Maybe I need the
basketball on
coffee.
my computer. See, because we don't need TV sets to watch basketball anymore, people. Just throw that out there. Goodness.
Right, but we want to watch. We want to watch on our TV sets. But I got my Roku. I got my subscription ESPN
but you
Plus.
have the option, so I will be doing that. If you want more details, by the way, in the American Conference in softball, I did a nearly hour's preview of the American Conference with Cassie Tarsargic on my In the Circle podcast, which you could follow on In the Circle SB. So if you want more details on the American in softball, go to the most recent episode, which came out a little earlier today as we record on Thursday. So that's out as well. I will be on the with Austin Cox on his show on Thursday as well.
Yep, the AAC Daily. Yep.
That's right. I'll be on with him. As we preview the UCF VCU game and talk about the TV contract as well. So I'll be breaking that down, hopefully, as well. So I will be all over the place. I'll be in an Alabama podcast on Monday talking softball, talking bracketology. It's that type of year where now I pretty much have a phone locked into my ear for like 24
We're hearing
hours.
the notifications coming through actually as of right now. So there's news happening for Softball Woj, Eric Lopez, that you probably have to get to. All right. Don't forget to follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com. We are SB Nation's home for your UCF Knights on this insanely busy weekend. It'll be fun. Women's basketball at 7 o'clock on Friday. Men's probably right after that. ESPN 2 and CBS respectively. Don't forget to take a look at Jeremy Brenner's roundtables previewing both of those games. Yeah, it's just going to be total and complete madness and craziness. Because, it's March, and it's March Madness. This is literally what they mean by March Madness with all these sports going on at the same time. Follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. Follow us each individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, and Brian is at Spokes_Murphy. And you can also follow us at Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. That'll do it, boys. Safe travels. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks, Jeffrey.
All right. And for all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the madness. We'll catch you next week.